We do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Once said by John F. Kennedy when sending a man to the moon. Over many years, we have sent multiple people to space, and one of those people is Michigan native astronaut Michael Bloomfield. We start our journey on land and experience the pathway to space.
So I was born in Flint, Michigan, and I grew up in Lake Fenton, Michigan, which is about 30 minutes south of Flint, right next to Fenton, Michigan, and north of Ann Arbor by about 30 minutes or so. When I was in third grade, my parents moved out to a farmhouse there, which we remodeled over the years, and then I graduated from Lake Fenton High School in 1977.
While Bloomfield grew up, he rooted for both Michigan teams.
I can tell you that when they were playing each other, I really didn't have one in particular. I can tell you my dad got his master's from the University of Michigan, and right now I have a nephew that's going to the University of Michigan, and I have a niece right now that's going to Michigan State. So, as we like to say down here in Texas, I'm kind of in a house divided.
Bloomfield's next step was college, and his sole purpose was to be a football player.
I went to the Air Force Academy. I left in the summer of 1977, and my main reason for going to the Air Force Academy was because they recruited me to play major college football, Division I football. They were the only school that recruited me to play Division I. I really enjoyed football. I enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed the physical activity, the gamesmanship. And so I went to the Air Force Academy out in Colorado, believe it or not, just to play football.
Once Bloomfield's career at the Air Force was over, he had to figure out what he wanted to do with his life going forward.
If you graduated from the Air Force Academy and you were pilot qualified, then you were offered a slot in pilot training for the Air Force. And so all the personnel at the Air Force Academy, the instructors and the generals and such, encouraged me to go to pilot training, and I did, and I loved it. To me, it was just like playing football all over again. It was very operational in nature.
Bloomfield's career as a pilot begins, and through those years, the excitement of flying grew within Astronaut Bloomfield.
So I got accepted into test pilot school, and that's important because later on in my life, in order to become an astronaut, you had to be a test pilot, but that's not what I was thinking at the time. So I got through test pilot school, and I flew the F-16 in flight tests for 3 years, and then the Air Force was tapping on my shoulder again, saying, "Hey, it's time for you to go sit behind a desk again." And I really didn't want to do that. And so at the time, NASA was taking applications for people to become astronauts. They were getting ready to build the International Space Station. So I threw an application in, and I was very fortunate, and I got picked up in 1995 and moved from California to down here in Houston, Texas, and joined our nation's space program.
When we enter the second hour, we will learn what it is like to leave the planet and enter a galaxy that not many people have been before. Michael Bloomfield would begin his career at NASA and would pilot 3 space missions that would help create the International Space Station. Astronaut Michael Bloomfield would begin his career at NASA, piloting 3 shuttles called Atlantis, Endeavour, and Atlantis again to work on the International Space Station. There was a lot of preparation for all missions, but Bloomfield will take us through the process of leaving Earth's atmosphere.
The launch itself has 3 very distinct phases to it, if you will. If you've ever seen a shuttle launch, the first phase is the first 2 minutes where the solid rocket boosters are still attached to the vehicle. And during that phase, it's a very rough ride. A lot of vibrations, a lot of things going on, a lot of movement. It's hard to read the gauges. And then after 2 minutes, the solid rocket boosters come off, and there's this big flash as the boosters get pushed away from the shuttle. And instantly, the ride becomes very, very smooth. The main engines are very smooth, and it's kind of not much of a G-force at that point. So for about the next 3 minutes, up to the 5-minute point, you're not feeling any G's at all. And then the last 2 or 3 minutes of the flight, the vehicle really starts to accelerate. And in fact, during the last 2 minutes, your speed increases by 1,000 miles per hour every 10 to 15 seconds. Now, 1,000 miles per hour is really fast. I mean, that's how fast. That's twice as fast as an airplane that's flying through the sky, one of the the commercial airliners. So to increase your speed by 1,000 miles per hour every 10 to 15 seconds just gives you an idea of how much energy is involved in getting into space.
When reaching outer space, astronaut Bloomfield did two things that he will never forget.
So, of course, I think I did what everybody would do. Well, there's two things that you do. The first thing you do is you look out the window to see, hey, what does Earth look like? And it turns out that when the main engine's cut off, it's called MECO, you're really only about 80 miles above the Earth's surface. So the Earth still looks, you can see the curvature of the Earth, you can see the blackness of space, you can look down, and I remember my first thought was, wow, I just went through this huge launch sequence, and this is all the further I am away from Earth, just 80 miles. I mean, that's not very far, quite frankly. But then the second thing that you do is you usually, at least I did, is I took my pencil out of my pocket and put it right in front of my face and let go of it, and it was just floating there, right? There really is no gravity up here, which is pretty amazing. So those were the two things that I did once I got into space.
To become an astronaut and reach outer space is a privilege for Bloomfield, who reflects back on his time.
So the thing that I learned about going into space, and it was funny, I was talking to Peggy Whitson yesterday, who's the American that holds the most time in space. And she's a great lady. She landed, I think, 3 or 4 months ago. She had just come off the International Space Station. And we were talking, and you want to know, well, how did it go? Did you have a lot of fun? And her answer was one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life is, she said, oh, it was a great time, Mike. We had great people up there. And that's what I remember about the time in space. It's always been about the people, right? It's about who you're hanging out with. It's about this amazing group of people that are interested in putting together spaceships and spacesuits and tools and all the other equipment that's required so that we can actually fly into space.
Bloomfield also wanted to remind younger generations of the importance of people in space.
You know, the guys, the people that are going to be graduating from high school this year, it's pretty amazing to think that they will be graduating, and ever since they've been born, ever since they've been on this Earth, we have had people living off the Earth. We've had people on the International Space Station continuously since October of 2000, and now here it is. They're going to be graduating in 2018, and most of them will have lived on a planet where there's been other people living off the planet the entire time, which I think is pretty cool.